Hi, and welcome to Bergen Open 2021. I will share the solution to problem J with you, the junior price robot. So the input in this problem is basically a list of numbers. We can see the list of numbers is the second line of the input here. And the question is, what is the distance between the first number of the input and the next number which satisfies the following constraints, that it is less than or equal to the first number. So the next number which satisfies that constraint is this one. So what is the distance between these two numbers? Well, it is 3. 1, 2, 3. So a convenient thing to notice is that the distance here, because the first number is always the first number in the list, well, if we do zero indexing of the list, so if this is index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4, index 5, then we notice that the answer is always going to be just the index of the first occurrence of a number which is smaller than or equal to the first number, excluding, of course, the first number. Okay, so how do we go about making code that solves this problem for us? So the first thing we need to do is to actually read the input. So the first line of input is this number 6 here. So we need some code that fetches that line for us. And I'm going to pseudocode in Python 3. And in Python 3, we have this beautiful function, input. So what this function does is it's going to go and fetch the first line of input for us and give it back to us as a string. Okay, so I don't want it to be a string, I want it to be an integer. So I'm going to convert it to an integer right away and store it in a variable. So now I have fetched the first line of input. Now let's go fetch the second line of input. So again, we do a call to input. The return value of this function is going to be the entire second line of input here as a string. So we don't really want to treat it as a string, we want to treat it as a list of things. So what we can do is that we can call this function called split. So the function split here, it's going to take the string and it's going to break it up along all the spaces. So you're finding the spaces and then like using a scissor there and making a list of whatever remains. And at this point, what we have is a list of strings, right? So the content in the list is strings. We don't really want the content to be strings because these are numbers and we're going to do comparisons such as this, and then we need the content of the array to be actual numbers, right? Okay, so how do we take a list of strings and convert it to a list of numbers? Well, I'm going to show you one cool way to do it, and that is by the map function. Okay, so the map function, it's actually taking two arguments. It's going to take one argument here, where I just put int, and then it's going to take a second argument is a list of things. So what the map function does, it takes two inputs. The first is a function, and the second is the list of things. So what it does, it's going to go through the list of things and apply the function to everything in the list and produce a new list-like thing. Unfortunately, it's not actually a list that you get, but it's easy to convert it to a list. And at this point, this A thing here is holding a list of numbers. All right. So now let's go about actually solving the problem now that we have stored the input in memory. Let's do this. So we have to go through all of the elements, right? But not the first one. So let's do a for loop that goes through all of these elements here, and let's do it by index. Okay, so now we're stepping through here. So the first time we find a number which is smaller than or equal to the first one, then we have our answer. So let's check if the number that we're looking at now satisfies the constraint that we're looking for. So here we did our check for the constraint, and if this number is actually smaller than or equal to the number we're comparing against, the first number, then we're done. Then we have our answer, and the answer is the index, right? So if we went through this for loop and this never happened, well, that means that the first number actually was the smallest number in the list. Okay, so if that was if the first number is the smallest number in the list, then we're sort of in this case where the answer is infinity. Okay, so I've made some return statements here, which doesn't really make sense, so I need to have it inside a function for the return statements to make sense. And now I want to print the results. And there you go.